Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 12-month progress report, where I'd like to talk about my PhD, which is targeted neuroprotection for post-cardiac arrest patients. Out-of-hospital cardiac arrest has a very low favorable neurology recovery rate of only 8%. And right now, there is no specific way to improve this number. In our systematic review and meta-analysis, we tested whether starting targeted temperature management pre-hospitally in the ambulance as early as possible would benefit patients' neurology at hospital discharge, but we found that the procedure not only didn't help patients' neurology, but it also turned out to be dangerous because of the significantly elevated odds for pulmonary edema and recurrent cardiac arrests. This means that targeted temperature management should not be applied pre-hospitally to patients. Scientists should be focusing on other ways to reduce the cerebral metabolism for resuscitated patients, and the policymakers should revise the guidelines on targeted temperature management. After introducing the topic, let me introduce myself quickly before getting into the specifics. My name is Krisztina Csőke-Kabai. I'm a resident physician and also a first-year PhD student, and I work at the emergency department of the University of Szeged. My vision is that all resuscitated patients should thrive and not just survive, and my mission is to drive therapeutic innovations for better quality of life following resuscitation. In order to reach these goals, we've launched 2 projects last year, and both of these projects are about the neuroprotection of resuscitated patients. Let me start with the first one, which is investigating the efficacy and safety of pre-hospital targeted temperature management on neurological outcome in out-of-hospital cardiac arrest patients. As I said in the beginning, out-of-hospital cardiac arrest is not uncommon, and it has an unacceptably low recovery rate of only 8%. And this is because the hypoxic ischemic brain injury leads to increased mortality and prolonged disability. And we know that the cerebral metabolic rate for oxygen is reduced by about 6% for every 1 Celsius degree reduction in the patient's core temperature. Therefore, the whole process of cooling down the patients to 33 degrees is there to avoid secondary brain damage. Literature suggests that a delay in reaching the target temperature may even worsen the neurology in hospital settings. And what's more, there is conflicting evidence in literature about the optimal starting time of the procedure. So we thought that we would examine what happens if we start the procedure as early as possible in the ambulance. Would that be neuroprotective for the patients? This leads to our clinical question, which is, does early or pre-hospitally initiated targeted temperature management improve neurological outcome compared to later or in-hospital started targeted temperature management in out-of-hospital cardiac arrest patients? Our population will be patients after out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. The intervention is targeted temperature management started pre-hospitally and then continued in hospital. The comparator is starting the procedure only in hospital. The primary outcome is neurological functions, and the secondary outcome includes survival to discharge, 90-day mortality, recurrent arrest, body temperature and hospital admission, time to reach target temperature, and adverse events. Our hypothesis is that reaching the target temperature sooner will improve overall neurological outcome. On this slide, you can see the strategy for our systematic search. We had 3 domains. We only included the RCTs in this study. Our initial hit was more than 7,000 articles, which we reduced down to 7 articles that made it into the manuscript. You can see here our manuscript status, which is written, and now it is waiting to send to internal review. Our target journal is Critical Care, which is a D1 journal with an impact factor of 9.3. Let's talk about the results in details. On this forest plot, you can see the time to reach the target temperature. This is very important because it will show us whether if it's worth starting the procedure at all. Does it create a difference between the 2 groups that we can examine? So you can see the results of 3 RCTs of about 1,100 patients. And even though We have moderate heterogeneity. You can see that the individual results of each article is, or they show low inconsistency, so the pooled end result is firm. The time is given in minutes, and if you see the mean difference between the two groups, it's minus 97 minutes, which means that those patients who were started to be cooled earlier, pre-hospitally, took about 1.5 hours less time to reach their target temperature. This is important because it gives a very strong basis to our hypothesis, and now we can talk about our most important primary outcome, which is having favorable neurology. The definition for favorable neurology is that the patient is able to lead an independent life. They do not need round-the-clock care. We have the results of 7 RCTs. The event of having favorable neurology is given if odds ratio. And if we pull the results together, we see that it's 0.98. And it just means that there was no real measurable clinical difference between the neurology of patients who were started to be cooled before and later. But is it safe? So we know that it didn't work, but is it safe? When we examine these two events of recurrent cardiac arrests and pulmonary edema, we can see that in both cases there was a significantly higher odds to have these conditions in the group of people who were started to be cooled before. So it is safe to say that early pre-hospital cooling not only didn't improve the rate of favorable neurology, but it also significantly increased the odds of recurrent cardiac arrest and pulmonary edema. This means, of course, that it shouldn't be applied routinely after out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, but there is still room for certain subgroups, especially for patients who were cooled with the transnasal method. They can still benefit from it, and it should be further studied. We have a number of strengths, which is that we only included high-quality RCTs, we have a relatively high number of patients, and we have a very clear message in this meta-analysis. The limitations include low number of studies, patient heterogeneity, and the different intervention methods. Now let me talk about my second study, which is investigating the efficacy and safety of seizure prevention, a neurological outcome in cardiac arrest patients. A large variety of possible epileptiform patterns may evolve in resuscitated comatose patients. These are called the rhythmic periodic patterns, or RPPs. Up to 30% of these episodes occur, up to 30% of comatose patients have these episodes, and a third of these can be missed, especially if we're not using an EEG. We know that the corticosynaptical activity is very sensitive to hypoxemia and ischemia, and it leads to post-synaptic status myoclonus. And this is the most common type of seizure after an event like this, not a general tonic-clonic seizure, and it is very easy to miss. And they may even occur days after the cardiac arrest, and if they go unnoticed, they're repeated. They go on for a long time. They may increase the fatality rate of up to 100%. So, what's missing is that the guideline offers very weak recommendation with very low certainty level of evidence on seizure prophylaxis. So that we thought there is absolute room for a high-quality RCT on seizure prevention on cardiac arrest patients. Our clinical question in this study: does seizure prevention improve neurological outcome and reduce post-resuscitation complications in cardiac arrest patients? Our population is patients after cardiac arrest without a seizure. The intervention is seizure prevention therapy compared to standard care. Our primary outcome is neurological functions, and the secondary outcome is survival, 90-day mortality, incidence of seizures, and adverse events. The hypothesis is that seizure prevention will improve overall neurological outcome. The clinical implication of this study is that with better neurological results, fewer patients will need round-the-clock care, and this leads to personal, financial, and economical benefits. The exact details of this intervention are currently under discussion. So to summarize, we have these two ongoing projects. The first one should be submitted next month, and the second one should be submitted by the spring of 2026. Let me end my presentation with a quote that really resonates with me: where there's a will, there's a way. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I would like to ask, if I understood correctly, your first forest plot says that if we do the more of the cooling, then it would be more benefits. But the rest of the results says that the pre-hospital cooling will not be benefits. So what make the change? Is it the pre-hospital itself that prevented the advantages of the cooling?
I understand there is a little bit of confusion, which I absolutely understand. The first forest plot doesn't show a clinical benefits. The first forest plot is to show that the procedure actually works, and patients who come to the hospital, first, they already arrive with a significantly lower body temperature, and they take significantly less time to reach their target temperature. But this is not a medical goal. This is a clinical factor that differentiates between the two groups. Because here we're talking about the neurons, you know, and for the neurons, a couple minutes even matter as in the sense of survival without oxygen or without any nutrients. And this shows that the procedure is very effective in cooling the patients down quickly. So now we can compare the neurological results of the two groups, as shown here. But if you compare the neurological results of the two groups, you can see that it doesn't make a difference. So they reached the target temperature much sooner, yet their neurons didn't survive any better than those patients who were cooled later.
I understand. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So congratulations for your presentation and your high-quality research.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding this forest plot and specifically about the grade assessment. So you rated it as a high quality of evidence.
Yes.
Don't you think it should be downgraded at least once for the inconsistency?
Do you mean the inconsistency?
The point estimates for each study, because the first three...
The confidence intervals?
I mean, the first three studies shows that the pre-hospital is better, and the last four shows the opposite. So the visual consistency among
yes,
the results.
There is a visual consistency, but if you look at the confidence intervals, all of them reaches both sides. So while you see that the first three may be on the left side, on the in-hospital side, their confidence interval reaches into the other one, so their results might be over there. So when I came to the grade assessment, based on their timing, based on their evaluation, based on the factors that they listed as favorable neurology, based on the procedure, it was all very similar, and that's why I rated it high.
Okay, fair enough. You convinced me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question.
Did you look into the subgroups in these OHCAs differentiated based on shockable, non-shockable rhythm, or cardiac cause, traumatic cause?
Yes, we did tremendous amount of subgroups. I think I have a couple at the end of the presentation if you wish to see. But to summarize, I show these ones because these are the main ones, and I show these ones from the adverse events group, because this is the only when we found significant difference. So we examined the shockable, non-shockable, we examined the ambulance getting there within 10 minutes and after 10 minutes. We examined giving it with IV fluids or transnasal method when they cool down the oxygen. We examined intra-arrest, giving the fluids intra-arrest or post-ROSC. I think these are the main ones, and none of those showed any difference. So that's why they are introduced in the paper, but that's why they didn't make it to the presentation.
Thank you.
So I really enjoyed your talk and very high quality research.
Thank you.
What I have questions about, let's say that I just if it was my relative, if it was your relative, would you say not to start the cooling at home or in the ambulance? And just a second, because you also said minutes. I wanted to say time is brain. It's a very important question, and pulmonary edema, recurrent cardiac arrest, very important. I understand that it's not safe that way, but I just feel that we don't see the whole picture yet. There must be groups of patients who definitely benefit from that, or because I feel that it's a very cool thing to start the cooling before the patient gets to the.
Yes, you're absolutely onto something, and it's mostly on the method of cooling, because in this we have 7 studies, and in 5 of them they give them large amount of IV fluids, like ice cold, like 4 degrees fluids. And it was the fluid overload that led to these recurrent cardiac arrest and pulmonary edema. And pulmonary edema, okay, it's manageable, but recurrent cardiac arrest is something that we really want to avoid. So cooling with IV fluids should not be done. So to answer your question to my relative, I would say that if the transnasal method is available, which is not available in Hungary, then they should do that too, because what it does, it only cools down the oxygen that the patient would receive anyway. So it's not harmful. Our analysis on that shows it's not harmful. But in the hospital, when the cooling of patients is done by cooling blankets or ice pads, or one of the machines has a beautiful name, it's called the Arctic Sun. I love that. I would definitely ask that my patient would be cooled, yes, because in hospital it shows good results.